It's time for Top Dice. Hi, and welcome to Top Dice. I'm Aid, and of course, there's Chris with me. We're going to have a very, very short chat today about the new artwork for the new D&D editions, Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual. Now, I think both of us have got some opinions on this, Chris.
Yeah, let's start with the player's guide, which we all saw first. Personally, I thought it was quite weak, very washed out, very sort of
pastel colours.
I don't know what the process. I've forgotten what it is. Sort of when you're sort of creating artwork, sort of especially using a digital program, you can flatten it. You know, the way it gets created, there's different levels. So whoever's done that, they've created an incredibly flat image. And you know, considering it's supposed to be a sort of dynamic group of daring adventurers facing off against threats and things like that, it does come across as a rather cardboard cutout, sort of almost amateur attempt. And I actually thought, personally, I thought it was concept art to begin with, and then various other sites would say, "Oh, you know, this is the front cover." And it's like, no. I mean, if you go back to every single player's guide, it is like in your face, whereas this one's like back here somewhere. Unfortunately. Aid?
I'm basically going to turn around and sort of say, yeah, I agree with you completely. There are quite a few homages there to the history of D&D, but the colouring of the colour of the actual cover, I'm not taken by. I'm not a particular fan of the artwork. I do like the alternate cover for Player's Handbook. That's something a little bit different, and I do like that. But I'm afraid Player's Handbook, I'm not a great fan of. I like the idea of the red spine with the name of the product actually on it and the D&D. That's absolutely great. But I'm not taken. But now, one thing I will say about all these three covers, they're very similar in nature. So they're very similar colouring to each other, and I would sort of even go far to say layout. So there is some continuity there. And clearly, Wizards of the Coast are trying to create a brand image with these, or establish a brand image of this new version of 5th edition.
Yeah, if I might say as well, they're all, not only are they trying to develop a brand image using a particular sort of art style, Hasbro, who own Wizards, have done this very well with certain board games, which it has a uniform artwork, like it or not, it works very well. Whereas this, it's still disjointed because the quality of the images are different, considering they're supposed to be for a 3-block entry point into their flagship game.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the greatest cover for what they call the greatest role-playing game.
Yeah. Now, what I would have done actually with it, I would have had it so you could put the 3 books face up next to each other, Players, Dungeon Masters, Monster Manual. So all 3 of them, they ran into each other and told an overall story. But it clearly doesn't. That might have been something a bit different that they could have tried with this particular version or edition of D&D. But again, with the Dungeon Master's Guide, I wasn't a particular fan, and the Monster Manual, again, not a particular fan of the standard art. But it's an image that they're creating for their product.
Now, funny you mentioned not liking the Dungeon Master's Guide. Personally, I love the cover of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Out of the three, it's my favourite, because what they've managed to do with this second image of the Dungeon Master's Guide is what they were trying to do at the first, which is tap into players of a certain age who remember the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, because prominently featured on the Dungeon Master's Guide is Venger, who was, as we all know, the big bad guy in the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. He was the bad guy we all loved to hate as kids. It was awesome. But if you look at the composition of the cover, the Dungeon Master's Guide works. The color, the colorization, the fact that it looks like a finished image, and it is highly polished, and it's to the front as an image goes. If I'm making any sense, it engages you as a viewer and drags you in, and you think, well, now I've seen Venger, I'm going to look at all the other things. It takes you on a journey and you see things. Whereas the first, the player's guide, which will be the first thing everyone sees, it's a case of what soup of an image am I looking at here? Where does your eye's not drawn? There is no central focus.
No.
Or point to the image, really. The second one does that, because you've got this incredible winged figure, sort of, commanding his minions, and then there's people around, like a council of evil, as it were. And the back cover, if you turn it over, is amazing, because you've got in the background players doing their pesky player stuff, sort of, getting in the way of the dungeon master's amazing plans, which is kind of what the Dungeon Master's Guide is. Whereas the player's guide, if you turn that over, I believe there's going to be an image of them riding a dragon. Without sounding like whoopie-doo, I mean, it's not engaging. I mean,
it's not engaging at all, and the monster manual as well.
Exactly the same. It doesn't do anything for the viewer. It's literally just slap an image on. Thank you. Let's just sell some copies. What it feels like. It's just, that'll do. That'll do. Considering they're supposed to be the greatest company producing the greatest game, then, well, it's like they've literally thrown together a load of concept art, tweaked it a little bit, and chucked it out. This is what happens when you create games by committee. You don't get a proper sort of continuity of feel. There is no sort of no personality at all to speak of.
I think what we've got to remember here is that D&D is Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast is Hasbro. Hasbro has executives. The executives want to be kept happy, and they've given their remit, and this is what the outcome actually is.
Yes.
Potentially, this has been signed off by people who are not role players, but we've gone, hey, that's quite cool. I like that. We like that. Now, I know there's been some controversy saying, well, it looks a bit like AI art. I don't think it is. Any of it's particularly like AI art. I'll give it that, which is good. But it's just I don't find any of it interesting. I would sort of agree with you as well that the Dungeon Master's Guide is the most interesting of the two or the three. But again, it just doesn't do anything for me. With all the great art they could have had, with Easley, Elmore, all the other big artists that have actually worked with the game over the years or have been involved with creating the imagery of it, it seems quite weak. and ineffective. That would be my take on it. And great, we've got Wenger, we've got Tasha in there. There's this that, but really, um, do does it summon up the image of Dungeons and Dragons? Can you look at that cover and go, "Hey, that's Dungeons and Dragons"? No,
Yeah.
I would say
The
definitely not.
And we were saying off camera as well, the alternative, not, let's not forget the alternative covers as well.
I do much prefer the alt covers of
prefer
we've seen
those.
so far. Yeah,
The first two were very interesting. They follow a certain continuity. There is a certain link between them. But then you get to the third, the Monster Manual, and it is a very different art style. And it's rather than sort of featuring several characters in sort of like a panned back sort of wide angle sort of picture almost. This one's quite close up for a personal, just shows one mind flayer, which yes is very D&D.
Well, it's iconic, but the thing is, you're not going to get first level characters, second, and third or fourth level characters potentially coming across and meeting such a thing. It'd be game over so quickly.
And
And
I
where's your dungeon? Where's your orc?
know,
Where's your goblin?
yeah, I think I know why they've put the mind flayer on the monsters manual, because it's to link in to the people who played Baldur's Gate. They want to get the people who played Baldur's Gate on whatever system they've used, and then basically drag them in and go, oh look, there's more. You can play the tabletop version of the game. It's disgusting, isn't it? It's like, they're reversing it rather than having it like Baldur's Gate is based on. It's like this is based on Baldur's Gate. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like we're trying to.
Yeah. No, I've never played Baldur's Gate. Not the new version. I've played the old Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and really enjoyed those. Not touched the third one. No intention of doing. It's for me, it's more of a tabletop thing these days. I used to play the actual computer games at a period of time when I found it very difficult to actually stand a chance of getting any gaming as such actually in. So it's a bit of a different take for me on that. So I've not really bothered looking at Baldur's Gate 3 at all.
I haven't. I mean, I could be completely wrong. Please comment below it. I'd love to know what people think, because I think they're trying to use this as a sort of entry point, like a catch-all now to grab. It's like, right, okay, you played the game, now play this version of the game, which is a little insulting, if I'm being honest. But that's just my personal opinion, guys. I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of D&D anyway.
I know. Will you be buying it?
Will I be buying it? No.
No.
And I'll be honest with you, when I was playing third edition, which was the last version I played, I loved third edition. I loved the covers. I loved the interior art was uniform. It was very sort of like parchment paper, sort of like old, sort of faded, sort of interior, and it was all color. It was all. I thought that was what D&D looked like, because it had, this particular style. All the characters looked quite similar. The armor they wore, it was all uniformed. The monster manual worked because like characters, the monsters had this uniform look. I never once bothered with the Dungeon Master's Guide because it didn't offer me anything really useful.
No.
I've never read a Dungeon Master's Guide for any edition of D&D that is of any use.
Read. I would pick up, if I were you, a copy of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, the original one, and just read Gary Gygax's original words and version actually of it, and that is
I've never owned that.
quite enlightening. I'll lend you a copy.
Yeah.
So, and also it's got a great appendix in there of books to read. There's lots of information actually. It's been done since, obviously, in later versions actually of it, but the original AD&D guide, Dungeon Master's Guide, I think, is by far a better version.
Which is strange because, having said what I've said previously about absolutely loving the cover, the contents of the book I've always found useless, if I'm being brutally honest.
Yeah.
You know, and all the other games that I do play don't have a Dungeon Master's Guide.
No,
so
very few do. Very few do.
out
Out of all my D&D books post AD&D second edition, the the Dungeon Master's Guide is probably the one I've read the least. I'll be quite upfront about that out of the 3 core rule books.
But, so back to the art itself.
Yeah, we digress.
Yes, sorry, we digress. So any of them that you particularly do like?
No.
No, none whatsoever.
I'm not. I'm now saying that. I will pick them up simply because I want to have a read to see what's in there. I'm not going to be rushing to buy them. I'm going to be using probably if I do D&D, I'll probably be using an early version of it. But it'd be interesting for me to see how those changes have actually gone about internally. Whether I like the art or not is another matter. I've other issues with the new version coming up. I'm not happy with Greyhawk going front and center, although I'm probably one of the #1 Greyhawk fans around.
True.
I really, I don't think that 5th edition sits well with Greyhawk because of what it is, what it was, and the various statements that Wizards of the Coast have released about older systems, about them being concerned about the attitudes and points of view. It's a fantasy world. That's my take. I know we're really diversing off here, but again, I would like to see what it is before I take a dislike
In
to it.
other words, you're not going to judge the book by its cover, basically.
No, I'm not. I'm going to give it a look at, and I'm going to sort of see and weigh it up. Now, anything could actually sort of happen on there. My favorite editions at the moment are Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and the original Dungeons and Dragons, the Rules Cyclopedics, which is basic, expert, etc. So they're my favorites so far. But we will wait and see.
Yeah.
And see what happens with it.
So
That's my take on it. That's my final word on the subject.
Yeah. Personally, I will not be buying any of them. I haven't bought anything D&D wise since 3rd edition. Won't be buying anything else. The only piece of artwork currently that I quite like from them is the the Venger artwork. I would put that on that wall behind me.
Yeah.
I love that picture. But I won't I won't have the books on my shelf. I won't run them. No. I prefer to do other things. But anyway, I digress. So it's just going to be interesting to see how they're going to go about the interior art as well. It would be quite interesting because it would appear they're trying to go for this whole nostalgia feel of the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon with all the characters that were a part of that.
Again, I'm not even going to go there. We don't know what it's like yet, so I'm not even going to go there. I think we'll keep that for another program, shall we?
Exactly. So there you go. We're not fans, but one of us is going to at least try it out. Yeah. And he will be running games. Where are you? He will be running games, which I will be.
Other way. That's it. Other side.
He will try. he will run it and I will try it, but I'm not going
Yeah.
to stop it.
That's the way to do it. Right. Subscribe, like, comment, and tell us what you like and what you disagree with. That's the way to do it. See you
Guys,
soon.
bye bye.
See you later from Top Dice. Bye bye.